Do y'all remember those early days of Rick and Morty? Where we are right now, those episodes feel like a fever dream. It's not uncommon for shows to change dramatically over time, but it is interesting to see how far they've come since their origin. Hey guys, what's going on? It is me, Punky Yoshi or Alberto. Welcome back to the video. Today we are discussing the return of the king. No pun intended for any Lord of the Rings fans. But is it really the king, or have they fallen from grace? We'll talk about all of that in this video. For those of you that are unaware, Rick and Morty came back for its 8th season on Adult Swim, which is pretty crazy. But it's kind of hard to shake the feeling that people have lost interest for the show over the years, and I don't blame them. At this point in its run, we're at the point where you either love the show and want to continue watching it, or you've dropped it like your yearly skincare routine. If you're new to our channel, hi. My name is Punky Yoshi and I like animation just as much as Rick loves Space Beth. Beths, Space Beths, and all Beths. Try to say that 3 times fast. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of this video, and we're going to be running down the first 2 episodes of Season 8. As someone who never really fully lost interest in Rick and Morty, I was super excited and was looking forward for the season to come out. It seems Rick and Morty had a crazy high that is long gone at this point. It seems like no one is talking about Rick and Morty, and there's not much merchandising that is out and about anymore. At least, not as much as you would see a couple years ago. To answer the question prompted in the title of this video, I do think Rick and Morty is back, but solely to the people that already have interest in Rick and Morty. Like at this point, you either love or dread the show. There's no in between. And the writers already know this. So, they are catering their episodes to the people that actually enjoy their episodes. Which is smart. Like in Harley Quinn, for example, Season 5 doesn't hold back and dives in full force to the wacky humor and storytelling that they know their audience is there for. And the same can be said for Rick and Morty. You kind of already know what to expect when you put on an episode of Rick and Morty. But damn, they had some really high highs and some pretty low lows.
No, I want Szechuan sauce. Where's my Szechuan sauce? I'm Pickle Rick! What beloved dum dum? Rick! I'm Pickle Rick!
I feel like a lot of people didn't watch Season 7. At least, most people in my life didn't even know they made a Season 7 of Rick and Morty. Which, I'll be real, that season did have a pretty rocky start. But when I showed them Fear No More, it genuinely changed their perspective on the later seasons of Rick and Morty. I am a firm believer that the writers of Rick and Morty still got it. The writing is pretty exquisite. Sometimes their concepts may fall short, but their quippy dialogue and awesome concepts do shine regardless of the absurdity of it all. We'll jump into running down the first 2 episodes of Rick and Morty. Then we'll come back and finish our thoughts. So, episode 1 starts with Summer, who is surprisingly older and living her life as a tech giant CEO. She goes to visit Morty, who is also older, and I see you girly fandom thirsting over adult Morty. Don't think I didn't catch y'all slipping. She convinces Morty to eject out of the simulated reality of a world that is obsessed with returning their phone chargers. She launches a device that allows the entire world to charge their phones with the air, which allows them to return back to C-137, where Rick wants to immediately mind blow them, but the kids want to keep their memories of the past 17 years in the alternate reality. So Beth convinces Rick to let them keep their memories. Beth picks up Summer from school and finds out they actually have a lot more in common than before, since Summer's mind is of a 30-year-old. Summer convinces her to have a girls' day out. Back at the house, Rick, dropping a beer, gives Morty PTSD of his entire life in the Matrix. He goes through a whole era in jail and ends up enlisting in the army. Beth starts to realize that Summer has become a nonchalant, shallower version of herself. So she goes to Rick and tries to convince him to turn them back. Beth borrows Rick's charger, and we see Morty's memories of going to war and respawning every time he dies. Morty tricks Rick into using a new charger that he built in the simulated reality, and he puts him in a matrix that guilts him for putting his grandchildren in the matrix. He storms off in the tank that they were building. Morty drives the tank to a local power plant that's connected to the entire country. Beth finds Summer in Santa Fe in a pottery studio made to help lost middle-aged women. Summer finds out about Morty causing havoc and rushes to stop him. Rick breaks out of the Matrix really fast, because of course he does, and also heads to stop Morty. Morty has PTSD from killing their version of Osama and the death of his own friend. Summer steps in front of a reactor and convinces Morty to stop, since him doing what he's doing won't end up bringing back the people he lost. She then confesses that the whole war was a ruse, that she started herself in order to get all the lithium in that world. They have a heart-to-heart and jump out of the tank. A steel beam crashes onto the reactor, and Rick has to go in to save the country. Morty gets a tattoo of a charger, and Rick wipes both of their memories back to being teenagers. Adult Summer leaves a message for Kid Summer, but she dismisses it, like most teenagers do. And that's the first episode. Episode 2 starts with the Galactic Defiance Committee, which has a very attractive young woman having a meeting of assassinating the Gramphomite Queen. But when they call for Beth, she's already going after her without their permission. Once she gets to the Queen, someone already had taken care of it. Things get dicey and she needs a lift out of the space station. When she calls for the Defiance, they deny her because she went on a rogue mission. So she has to use her last resort of calling her dad, and the man of the hour, Rick Sanchez. He shows up to help her and brings her back to the Galactic Defiance. They think she botched the assassination because on the news, she is celebrating her birthday. But moments ago, Beth saw a very much unalive version of the Queen. Rick sees that the Defiance is not very appreciative and patronizing Beth, so he steps in and ends up getting her fired. In a ride home, which kinda looks like a ride home from the principal's office, he convinces Beth to drop her off at a possible lead. The lead gets antagonized and talks. He tells him that the one plotting is a former royal doctor. They stop by his lab and find out that the Gramphomites created a steroid serum that beefs up the bugs, kinda like Joker in Arkham Asylum. Rick finds out it's a fungus and gets confronted by the doctor. The doctor wants to use a serum to make his species stronger. They find out that the Queen has a bomb that's going to set off during her birthday ceremony, so they have to come up with a plan to stop the catastrophe. Rick devises a plan to use his informant, Cisco, to help them get into the ceremony quietly and efficiently, but the dude flaked, so they have to do a run and gun method. They end up being sorta successful, other than Cisco totally messing up their plan. They neutralize the virus, but Beth gets stabbed by one of the mutants and is infected with the virus. In a space station, Rick convinces the Gramphomites to work together on a cure in order to cure Beth and save their planet from being taken over by the new species manifesting in the middle of their planet. After many attempts, they are successful and suit up to save their planet. Rick sees that the Gramphomites only have like 10 soldiers, so he calls his buddy, Bird Person, and his daughter to come help out. They fight their way in. The scientist ends up unaliving himself with his own creation. Rick delivers the payload in the nest and the mission is over. They discuss a treaty between the Gramphomites with the rest of the universe. Rick and Beth are commemorated for their achievements. And the episode ends off with Rick potentially getting spicy with one of Beth's coworkers. Honestly, 2 pretty banging episodes and a great way to start off the season. I really like the way they started off this season compared to the last one. So far, the past 3 episodes that Rick and Morty have released have been really good in my opinion, and I genuinely do like the direction that they're headed with the show. It kind of feels like a return to form from their more crazier episodes they have in the later seasons of Rick and Morty. Like, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but the older seasons of Rick and Morty had a charm to them because the adventures felt more grounded. And even though they were traveling interdimensionally or talking about convoluted science, they were still pretty easy to follow along. And I'm not saying that it's gotten harder to understand over the years, but it seems that they're returning to simpler stories. Sometimes it's kind of hard to wrap your head around a concept if it's too confusing. I do think Rick and Morty is back, and stronger than ever, but we're gonna have to see with time and these following episodes if they're able to continue that trend. But with that, I'm gonna end off today's video. If you did enjoy, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It goes a really long way for a small creator like myself. Let me know what you guys think of everything that we talked about in this video. Do you think Rick and Morty's back? What do you guys think of the first 2 episodes of this season? Or do you think that Rick and Morty never left and people are bugging and they should just be getting on the show? Let me know. I personally really like the series, but I've noticed that people that were really diehard fans not that long ago are nowhere to be found now, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you made it this far into the video, let me know what your favorite Rick and Morty episode is. Mine is probably Full Metal Jack Rick. Even though it's one of the more confusing ones, I really like that one. But I don't know, I might change my answer later. As always, my name has been Alberto, or Pancake Yoshi. I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye bye.